They say kindness is a virtue, and it is. But niceness is often just fear in disguise. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of being seen, truly seen, with all your edges exposed. You were taught to be nice, not to speak too loud, not to upset anyone, to apologize even when you did nothing wrong. You became agreeable, passive, pleasant, likable. But tell me, where has that gotten you? Because the truth is this: niceness is not always kindness. It is not strength. It is not virtue. It is the smile you wear when your soul is exhausted. The yes you give when your heart is screaming no. The silence you keep while others cross your boundaries like they don't exist. And slowly you vanish. You become a ghost in your own life. Niceness is the mask you wear to survive a world that punishes authenticity. But masks suffocate. And the longer you wear them, the harder it becomes to breathe. You think being nice will make people like you, that it will earn you respect, protection, love. But what it really earns you is a front row seat to your own erasure. Because when you constantly make others comfortable at the expense of your truth, you teach them to ignore your soul. Being too nice costs you everything real: your time, your energy, your dignity, your dreams. And here's the paradox the Stoics knew. Virtue isn't passive. It isn't about being agreeable. It's about alignment with nature. And nature does not cower. It does not apologize for existing. The lion does not explain itself to the antelope. The thunder does not ask for permission to roar. So ask yourself, what have you traded away just to avoid discomfort? How many hours have you spent saying yes to things that hollowed you out, just because you didn't want to be seen as difficult? How many times have you bit your tongue until it bled, believing that holding the peace was better than speaking your truth? This isn't strength. This is self-betrayal, a slow suicide of the spirit. And the world doesn't reward self-erasure. It exploits it. You want to be free? Then stop fearing what people will think when you finally draw the line. Real strength, the Stoic kind, comes from inner clarity, knowing who you are, what you value, what you'll tolerate, and what you won't. It's not about dominating others. It's about no longer being dominated by your own need for approval. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That includes the courage to disappoint others, to let them down rather than let yourself down, to choose truth over harmony when harmony demands your silence. You don't owe anyone the version of you that makes them comfortable. Too often, we trade power for approval. We silence ourselves to keep the peace. But peace built on suppression isn't peace. It's pressure. And one day it explodes. In burnout, in resentment, in depression, in that sickening realization that you were never living your life, just rehearsing someone else's expectations. You were not born to be nice. You were born to be whole, to be fierce in your integrity, to stand unshaken, like a mountain, calm, but never compromising your base. And that starts by facing the cost. Because every time you say yes to what doesn't serve you, you say no to what does. Every time you bend to avoid conflict, you break a little more inside. And every time you swallow your truth, you starve your soul. Being nice is easy. Being true, that takes strength. So make no mistake. This isn't a call to be cruel. It's a call to be real. To stop hiding behind politeness. To stop sugarcoating your fire. To stop dressing up your boundaries in velvet just to make others feel better about stepping over them. Because here's the truth. If your kindness costs you your voice, it's not kindness. It's compliance. If your empathy leaves you empty, it's not empathy. It's martyrdom. And if your niceness is just fear wearing a friendly mask, it's not virtue. It's avoidance. And avoidance breeds weakness. So now we burn the mask. Let the world see your eyes, unflinching, unwavering. Let them see the line in the sand you should have drawn years ago. Let them witness your rebirth, not into someone colder, but into someone clearer. Someone who no longer confuses acceptance with surrender. Someone who no longer calls sacrifice a virtue when it's actually self-abandonment. There's a moment, a precise moment, when you realize that people only treat you the way you allow. That your silence writes the script they read from. That your niceness gave them permission. And in that moment, if you're brave enough, you stop being the character and you become the author. No more playing small. No more apologizing for your fire. You are not here to be digestible. You are here to be real. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he ruled himself first. He didn't beg for validation. He didn't mold his soul to fit the mold of others. He carried the weight of leadership with stillness, with conviction. He knew. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This is your empire now. Your mind. Your time. Your energy. Guard it like the gate of Rome. And don't be surprised when those who benefited from your silence begin to resent your voice. They will call you difficult. They will call you arrogant. They will call you ungrateful. But let them speak. Let them bark from the sidelines while you march forward. That is the noise that rises when you start to matter. The cost of being too nice is paid in years. In late nights. In bitter mornings. In friendships that drain you. In jobs that belittle you. In relationships where your love becomes a leash. And the only way to reclaim your power is to reclaim your no. No is not rude. It's not cruel. It's a boundary. A shield. A declaration. I will no longer abandon myself to make you comfortable. And here's the miracle the Stoics understood. When you master yourself, the world begins to follow. The storms may still come. The critics may still shout. But they no longer dictate your course. You steer by something deeper. Your values, your reason, your inner fortress. Because real peace, the kind that can't be taken, comes not from pleasing others, but from honoring your truth. You do not need permission to be who you are. You do not need validation to stand your ground. And you do not need to feel guilty for protecting your soul from erosion. The cost of being too nice is far too high when it robs you of yourself. So today you choose differently. Today you speak even when your voice trembles. You stand even when your knees shake. You draw the line even if it's with trembling hands. Because freedom is never found in comfort. It's forged in fire. And fire is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the gentle, steady burn of conviction that says, I am no longer who I was. I am no longer willing to betray my inner law just to be liked. From this day forward, let your kindness be rooted in strength, not fear. Let your empathy come from overflow, not depletion. Let your silence be sacred, not forced. You are not here to be everyone's favorite. You are here to be free. Freedom doesn't wear a friendly smile when it's being stepped on. Freedom doesn't nod politely when the weight of expectation crushes its lungs. Freedom stands up. It straightens its spine. It speaks, calm, clear, and unapologetically, because the cost of being too nice is your freedom. And when you lose that, everything else falls. You start to forget what you even wanted in the first place. You start to confuse peace with passivity, love with obedience, respect with tolerance. You become a mirror, reflecting everyone else's needs, everyone else's desires, until there's nothing of you left in the reflection. Just a ghost, pleasant, polished, powerless. But the Stoics never bowed to the noise of others. They walked through fire and kept their center. They didn't seek approval, they sought truth. They didn't bend to avoid discomfort, they built endurance to withstand it. You need that now, because you are not here to be nice. You are here to live with virtus, with excellence of character, with the fire of clarity, with the discipline to hold the line even when the world tells you to move it. You are here to live on purpose, not under pressure. And yes, there will be friction. People will push. They always do when you change the rules they've grown comfortable with. When you stop being predictable. When you stop letting them write the script. But remember this, your discomfort in standing firm is nothing compared to the agony of living your whole life bent over, apologizing for your own spine. They may not like the new you. They may call you selfish, cold, arrogant. But that's because the old you was their convenience. The old you stayed quiet, compliant, small. The new you sets boundaries. The new you walks with purpose. The new you says no and doesn't explain. And you know what? That's not cruelty. That's growth. That's power wrapped in self-respect. The more you honor yourself, the more you become magnetic. not to those who want to control you, but to those who respect truth, who operate from wholeness, who don't fear your strength, but celebrate it. Because your real tribe, they don't want your silence. They want your truth. They don't want you small. They want you fully alive. So say it. Say the things you've buried for years beneath layers of niceness. Speak your boundaries. Claim your space. Ask for what you need, not with apology, but with conviction. Let your yes be rare and sacred. Let your no be clean and immovable. And let your life stop being a reaction and start becoming a declaration. You were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be authentic. You were not meant to appease. You were meant to rise. Nice is what they taught you. Real is what you remember when you finally stop pretending. The Stoics didn't say, be agreeable. They said, be rational. Be just. Be brave. Be temperate. And when the world burns around you, be unshakable. There is no wisdom in suppressing your soul. There is no virtue in being erased. The only thing you owe this world is the fullest, fiercest version of you. Let that version rise now. Not someday. Not when it's safe. Not when it's easy. Now. Because every second you delay is a second paid in silence. In regret. In dreams unspoken and days unlived. You have been polite long enough. Now be powerful. Power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't shrink to make others feel taller. True power is silent, grounded, steady. It's in your eyes when you stop explaining yourself. It's in your breath when you stop chasing acceptance. It's in your presence when you know exactly who you are and what you're not willing to tolerate anymore. Too many people mistake silence for virtue. But silence, when rooted in fear, is not virtue. It is bondage, a prison with velvet walls. And every time you say, it's fine, when it's not fine, another brick is laid. Another layer is added to the mask. Another part of you gets buried beneath the comfort of others. But you cannot heal a wound by pretending it doesn't exist. You cannot become whole by cutting yourself into pieces for people who will never notice you're bleeding. The Stoics taught not avoidance, but acceptance. Not avoidance of conflict, but acceptance of reality. And sometimes reality is hard. Sometimes reality is other people's disappointment. Sometimes reality is not being liked. And that's okay. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And we waste it on being too nice. You know how it goes. You nod when you want to scream. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when your gut says no. You carry burdens that aren't yours. And all the while, the voice inside you grows smaller and smaller, until it's nothing more than a whisper behind the noise of everyone else's demands. But that whisper, that's your truth. And it never goes away. It waits. Waits for the day you're finally done apologizing for existing. The day you realize you don't need to be liked to be worthy. You don't need to be agreeable to be good. You don't need to be small to be accepted. Because here's the reality. You can be kind and firm. You can be empathetic and draw the line. You can be generous and have limits. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they are not your people. Let them go. The more you reclaim your space, the more the wrong ones will leave. And that's not loss, that's alignment. The ones who only loved the version of you that kept them comfortable were never loving you in the first place. And when they leave, something else arrives. Peace. Not the peace of avoidance. The peace of clarity. You start waking up lighter, breathing deeper. You begin to hear that voice inside again. Not whispering, but speaking clearly, directly, like a compass that's finally been uncovered. And that compass will guide you to work that fulfills you, to people who respect you, to a life that reflects you. But only if you stop trying to be everything for everyone. You were not made to be universal. You were made to be true. The cost of being too nice is the slow death of your authenticity. Your genius. Your light. So stop negotiating with your soul. Stop making deals with your discomfort. And stop hoping that one more act of self-sacrifice will finally make someone see your worth. You don't earn love by disappearing. You don't earn respect by being a doormat. You earn it by showing up. Fully. Fiercely. Unapologetically. You are not too much. You are not too intense. You are not too honest. You are just too awake for a world addicted to shallow niceties. Let them sleep. You rise. Rise not in anger, but in truth. Rise not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you were always right to feel what you felt, to want what you wanted, to need what you needed. You were just too conditioned to ask nicely. Too trained to make your discomfort smaller so theirs could disappear. But this life is not a negotiation table. It's a battlefield of clarity, a proving ground for courage. And you are done playing small. Because when you stop being too nice, you start being real. And realness doesn't apologize for existing. It doesn't shrink to fit someone's narrative. It doesn't twist itself into palatable shapes just to earn scraps of approval. It breathes. It roars. It leads. And when you begin to lead not others but yourself, everything changes. You don't ask for respect. You command it through presence, through boundaries, through the quiet force of your unwavering standards. You don't seek permission. You act with conviction. You don't wait to be chosen. You choose your path, your pace, your people. And the world will notice. They always do when a once silent soul begins to speak. When a once broken spirit begins to build. When someone who once begged for peace starts to embody it. This is the warrior's path, the Stoic's path. Not the fight against others, but the battle within. Against fear. Against self-abandonment. Against the temptation to go back to the comfort of your cage. But you've seen what that cage does. You've felt the weight of your own niceness turned into chains. And once you've tasted freedom, you can never pretend you didn't. So don't go back to a version of you that tolerated too much. Don't water down your truth just to avoid the ripples. Don't silence your soul for the illusion of harmony. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. If it drains your spirit, it's not love. If it demands your silence, it's not worth your time. The world will try to sell you stories. Stories that say, don't be so difficult, be grateful, keep the peace. But peace without power is submission, and gratitude without self-worth is slavery. The Stoics knew this. They lived with clarity, not compliance, with principle, not people-pleasing. And they left us a blueprint not for how to be liked, but how to be free. To walk through this life with a calm mind and a fierce heart. To act not for applause, but from purpose. To give not from obligation, but from overflow. And to say with every breath, I belong to myself. That's the power on the other side of too nice. Not arrogance, not cruelty, but truth, unfiltered, unapologetic, undeniable. You are not responsible for managing other people's discomfort with your boundaries. You are responsible for honoring your own. So draw the line, speak the truth, stand the ground, reclaim the time, protect the soul. You are not here to be agreeable. You are here to be undeniable. Undeniable, not because you shout the loudest, but because your presence says everything your lips don't need to. Because your silence is no longer submission, it's sovereignty. Because your no is not a door slammed shut. It's a gate guarded by wisdom. You don't need to be feared. You just need to be clear. Clarity terrifies those who manipulate confusion. Strength rattles those who fed on your softness. But you are not here to soothe the fragile egos of those who never saw your value. You are here to live, breathe, create, and walk with fire in your lungs and peace in your chest. And yes, peace and fire can coexist. The Stoics taught that temperance is not weakness. It is mastery, discipline over reaction. But make no mistake, discipline is not silence when silence is betrayal. It is not tolerance when tolerance is decay. Discipline is discernment, the power to know when to speak and when to stay still, when to walk away and when to not move an inch. And it starts with a single sacred decision. I will no longer betray myself for acceptance. Let that sink in. No more people-pleasing at the cost of your passion. No more emotional labor for those who would never lift a finger for you. No more watering down your words just to keep the peace in rooms that never had space for your truth to begin with. You are not too much. You were just surrounded by people who were too afraid. Afraid of your honesty. Afraid of your intensity. Afraid of the version of you that no longer bends in the wind just to keep others from feeling a breeze. But your truth is not a threat. It's a lighthouse. And some people were simply never meant to dock at your harbor. Let them drift. You are not the one who has to shrink. You are the one who rises. And when you rise, not out of rage but out of alignment, the world rearranges itself around your standard. You stop chasing. You start attracting. You stop explaining. You start embodying. And when someone crosses your line, you don't raise your voice, you raise your standard. You don't lose control, you gain clarity. Because your peace no longer comes from being perceived as good. It comes from being whole. From knowing that every act of self-respect rewires your life in the direction of power. That every boundary you draw is a declaration. This is where I begin. This is where I remain. This is what I'm no longer willing to lose in the name of keeping the peace. Because there is a war raging inside too many souls. A war between the version of them that seeks approval and the version that seeks freedom. Only one can win. Choose wisely. You've been nice long enough. It's time to be real. It's time to be powerful. It's time to be free. Freedom doesn't arrive wrapped in comfort. It's not gifted to the obedient or the agreeable. It's claimed by those bold enough to walk away from the roles they were told to play. By those brave enough to say, I choose myself, not out of selfishness but out of necessity. Because choosing yourself is not betrayal, it's survival. It's the only way to stop bleeding for people who never learned how to stop taking. And the bleeding stops now. No more smiling through disrespect. No more tolerating half-love. No more pretending that your needs are an inconvenience. They're not. They're sacred, non-negotiable. And if that makes you difficult, be difficult. Let difficult be the name they give your strength. Let too much be the label for your passion. Let unreasonable be the cost of your clarity. Because the price of being agreeable is far more dangerous. It's the slow death of your instincts, the quiet erosion of your dreams, the numbness that settles in when you've said yes too many times and suddenly you don't even know what no feels like anymore. But you remember now, don't you? You remember the first time you stayed silent when you wanted to scream. The first time you let someone step over you just to keep the peace. The first time you gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left of you but a hollow shell saying, it's okay. When it wasn't. That version of you, compromised, drained, invisible, deserves better. And better begins with truth. Because truth is what the Stoics lived and died by. Not convenience. Not approval. Truth. And truth is not always polite. It doesn't knock. Sometimes it breaks down the door. Sometimes it arrives in the middle of the night, shattering the illusion you've built your life around. But it also sets you free. The truth is, being too nice isn't noble. It's a learned behavior, a trauma response, a survival mechanism turned personality trait. And it's time you unlearn it. You were not born to please. You were born to live boldly, with depth, with intention, with a spine that doesn't bend at the first sign of disapproval. So here's your permission, not that you need it. You are allowed to walk away from what drains you. You are allowed to say no without explaining. You are allowed to take up space loudly, fully, beautifully. You are allowed to stop being nice and start being honest. Because the people who truly love you will never ask you to abandon yourself for their comfort. And those who do, were never loving you, only your compliance. So let them go. And with each step away from what dims you, you walk deeper into what defines you. This is the cost of being too nice. And this is where you stop paying it. No more payments in silence. No more transactions where the currency is your self-respect. You've paid enough in sleepless nights, in swallowed words, in fake smiles that cracked your spirit a little more each time. Now you invest in something different. Self-trust, self-command, self-worth. Because when you stop being too nice, you start being sovereign. And sovereignty doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for consensus. It moves with purpose, not popularity. It walks the earth knowing, I am not here to fit in. I am here to become. And becoming requires the death of the people-pleaser, the funeral of the inner servant who lived for others' comfort, the burial of the self that apologized for breathing too loud. You can feel it, can't you? That flicker of something deeper, older than fear, stronger than guilt. That flame of knowing. You are not fragile. You are not meant to bow. You are not here to spend your one, wild, precious life softening yourself to fit someone else's mold. You are fire. You are mountain. You are a river cutting stone, not through violence, but through persistence, through truth, through time. And time is what you've been wasting on playing small, on pleasing people who forget your name the moment you stop serving their needs, on negotiating with manipulators who wear charm like a mask and use your kindness like a leash. But you are done. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not rude. You're rooted. You're not selfish. You're self-possessed. This is what the Stoics knew. This is mastery. When no one else controls you. When flattery doesn't sway you. When criticism doesn't shatter you. When praise doesn't own you. When rejection doesn't ruin you. That is freedom. That is peace. That is power. You want love? Start with self-respect. You want peace? Start with boundaries. You want to be seen? Start by seeing yourself. Not through the fog of obligation. Not through the lens of who they want you to be. But as you are. Undiluted. Unmasked. Unbreakable. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be known. And not everyone is meant to know you. Let that be their loss. Because the version of you that stops being too nice is the version that finally builds the life you were born for. Not the one handed to you. Not the one expected of you. But the one forged in the fire of your refusal to shrink. And that fire is yours now. Let it burn. Let it burn down every false identity you wore to stay safe. Let it consume every lie you told yourself just to belong. Let it scorch the illusion that worth is something you earn through sacrifice and silence. Because now, you were never meant to be the echo. You were born to be the voice. A voice that doesn't tremble when it speaks truth. A voice that doesn't hesitate to say no more. A voice that, when it speaks, commands not attention, but alignment. This is not rebellion. This is reclamation. Reclaim the mornings you gave away to people who didn't value them. Reclaim the words you never said, the ones lodged in your throat like rusted knives. Reclaim the strength that once scared you because it meant losing people who only loved your weakness. And understand this, when you step into your truth, you don't lose. You filter. The wrong ones will fall away. The right ones will rise closer. But more importantly, you rise. You rise with stillness, with direction, with unshakable self-awareness. You rise knowing that being too nice was never about them. It was about the parts of you that were afraid to be alone, to be misunderstood, to be judged. But those parts, they've grown. They've watched you survive disappointment, silence, abandonment, and you're still here. So now you stop surviving. You start living. Not for them, for you. Live like your time is precious because it is. Live like your energy is sacred because it is. Live like your voice has value because it does. And when the world tries to dim that light, don't argue. Just shine harder. You don't owe softness to those who weaponize your kindness. You don't owe tolerance to those who mistake your peace for permission. You don't owe forgiveness to those who never asked for it and never earned it. You owe one thing: loyalty to the self that was silenced, buried, ignored, but never died. That self is speaking now. In every boundary you draw. In every truth you tell. In every path you walk alone until the right ones catch up. Because the cost of being too nice? It was your voice, your time, your fire. But the moment you decide to stop paying it, you get it all back. You get it all back. The voice that once trembled now echoes with command. The time that was wasted now flows into purpose. The fire you once hid beneath politeness now illuminates your every step like a torch held high. And when you walk with fire, you stop waiting for warmth from others. You stop begging for light in dark rooms filled with people who never intended to see you. You become the source. That's what Stoicism taught, not detachment but direction. Not coldness but clarity. Not weakness hidden beneath the mask of civility, but the strength to remain unmoved in a world designed to provoke you into submission. Remember, it was never about being liked. It was about being true. And truth doesn't always get applause, but it gets respect. First from yourself, then from the world. So you stop shrinking your standards. You stop apologizing for having expectations. You stop accommodating chaos just to avoid being called harsh. Because here's the raw truth no one told you. People don't respect what's too available. People don't value what bends too easily. And people don't cherish what doesn't know its own worth. Being too nice didn't make your life better, it made it heavier. You carried everyone's load. You absorbed everyone's mood. You edited yourself 1,000 times in 1,000 rooms and still felt invisible. But not anymore. Now you stop editing. You speak what needs to be said, even if your voice shakes. You walk where you need to go, even if no one walks beside you. You live in alignment, even if it costs you comfort, convenience, or connection. Because nothing costs more than a life lived in quiet betrayal of your soul. And when that moment comes, the moment someone pushes your boundary, tests your silence, leans on your old self hoping you'll cave, you don't explode. You don't retreat. You hold the line. With stillness. With conviction. With that grounded voice that says, I'm not who I used to be, and I will never go back. The world doesn't need more people pleasers. It needs leaders. And leaders don't chase consensus, they set the tone. That's what you're doing now. Every step away from being too nice is a step toward self-mastery. Every boundary you draw is a signal. I have arrived. Fully. Unapologetically. Permanently. And if they can't handle that, let them leave. Because this time you won't be following them out the door. This time you stay in your truth, in your standard, in your fire. And everything that no longer fits that fire, let it burn. Let it burn the roles, the routines, the rituals of self-sacrifice that once defined your days. Let it all go up in smoke. The version of you that couldn't say no. The one that stayed quiet to keep the peace. The one that made themselves smaller so others could feel bigger. That version did their best. But now their time is done. Because now, you no longer equate nice with good. You understand what the Stoics meant when they spoke of virtue. That real virtue isn't performance, it's principle. And principle doesn't flinch when tested. It stands not because it's perfect, but because it's anchored. You are anchored now. Anchored in truth. Anchored in boundaries. Anchored in a self that no longer vanishes to be loved. You were never too much. You were just surrounded by people who wanted you to be less. Less bold. Less honest. Less free. But the fire inside you is ancient. And it remembers. It remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. You were never born to be polite. You were born to be powerful. So start walking like someone who remembers. Sit taller. Speak slower. Say no without the story. Say yes only when your entire soul says it with you. And when the guilt creeps in, because it will, when the old patterns whisper, you're being selfish. You're hurting them. You're too hard. Breathe. And remember this, guilt is often the echo of your conditioning, not the voice of your conscience. Guilt is what happens when your growth threatens the systems that depended on your compliance. Guilt is what arises not when you do something wrong, but when you do something different. Let the guilt rise, and let it pass. Because what stands on the other side of it is freedom. The kind of freedom that can't be taken because it was never granted, it was claimed. The kind of freedom that doesn't ask, do they approve? But, is this true? The kind of freedom that walks into every room knowing, I belong not because you accept me but because I accept myself. And in that moment, everything changes. The energy shifts. The people shift. Your life bends to the shape of your standard. Because the world reflects what you tolerate. And when you stop tolerating the intolerable, the world has no choice but to meet you at the level of your truth. That's what it means to stop being too nice. Not to become cruel. Not to stop caring. But to care in a way that includes yourself. To be kind without being used. to be generous without being emptied, to be loving without being lost. You were never supposed to choose between your kindness and your voice. You were meant to wield both, like twin blades, sharp, silent, uncompromising. So sharpen them, not to harm but to cut through illusion, to carve space for your truth in a world that constantly asks you to hide it. Let them call you too much. Let them call you difficult. Let them call you selfish. You answer to something higher now. You answer to your own standard. And when that standard is non-negotiable, your life becomes untouchable. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. Yours. That word hits different when you've spent a lifetime handing yourself out in pieces. When your energy became a charity case, and your dreams were paused to accommodate someone else's urgency. But not anymore. Now every minute is yours. Every yes is deliberate. Every boundary is sacred. Every step forward is rooted in deep, immovable clarity. I do not betray myself anymore. And in that vow, a new version of you is born, not built on politeness, but on purpose. Not obsessed with being chosen, but committed to choosing. Choosing peace over performance. Choosing truth over tension. Choosing self-loyalty over social approval. That's the life of someone who has stepped out of too nice and into real power. And what is power, truly? It's not domination, not force. It's presence. It's walking into a room and knowing you don't have to chase respect, because you carry it. It's the stillness of a soul that no longer flinches when others frown. It's the discipline to protect your time like a kingdom because it is one. Your life is not a democracy. Your energy is not up for debate. Your worth is not on trial. When the Stoics spoke of freedom, they meant this kind of strength, the unshakable calm of someone who has mastered themselves. No longer tossed by emotion, no longer swayed by approval, no longer hostage to the moods of others. You become the eye of the storm, unmoved, unbothered, untouched, and from that place your life recalibrates. The chaos that once consumed you begins to fall away. The noise dims. The people who once manipulated your silence find no foothold. And in their place, people who see you, not the mask, not the performance, you. Because when you stop being too nice, you make room for relationships built on respect, not convenience. You stop being used and start being valued. You stop being agreeable and start being authentic. You stop being background noise in someone else's story and start being the author of your own. So now the question is this: are you ready to be seen? Not the filtered version. Not the edited, agreeable shadow of yourself. The real you. The you who says no when it's a no. The you who stops over-explaining. The you who trusts your gut without needing 10 other people to validate it. The you who isn't afraid to take up space, speak boldly, and walk alone when necessary. Because that version, that's the one who builds a legacy. Not of false smiles. Not of people-pleasing. But of impact. Of truth. Of inner stillness that outlasts every storm. You don't need to change who you are to find peace. You need to stop suppressing who you are. And that starts when you stop confusing nice with noble. Nice with loyal. Nice with love. Real love, the kind that lasts, the kind that nourishes, doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to rise. Rise not to tower over others, but to meet yourself at eye level. To finally stand in your full height after years of hunching over, trying to make room for everyone else's comfort. Rise because staying small no longer serves you. Because dimming your light never protected you, it only delayed your purpose. The Stoics didn't teach the art of getting along. They taught the discipline of getting aligned with nature, with virtue, with truth. And truth is simple. You cannot serve the world by sacrificing your soul. You cannot heal others by abandoning yourself. You cannot love deeply if you don't stand firmly. Being too nice made you easy to digest, easy to dismiss, easy to use. But you weren't made to be easy. You were made to be honest. And honesty starts at home. Ask yourself, what have you been tolerating in silence? What boundaries have you been afraid to set? Whose approval are you still chasing, long after they showed you they were never capable of seeing you clearly? And why? Why does being misunderstood scare you more than being unfulfilled? Why does disappointing others feel more dangerous than disappearing from yourself? It's time to stop worshiping harmony when that harmony comes at the price of your own clarity. You do not owe your life to expectations that were never yours to begin with. You do not owe your presence to people who only love you when you're compliant. And you do not owe an explanation for evolving. Let them adjust. Or let them walk. Either way, you stay standing. Because standing is sacred. Your spine is not a rope for others to tug. It is a column of strength forged through every no you were too afraid to say. Every yes you gave while dying inside. Every tear, every compromise, every sleepless night. You carry it all. Not as shame, as fuel. And from that fuel, you now build a life that reflects who you really are, not who they trained you to be. There will be moments of doubt. Moments when the old programming kicks in. Moments when you'll feel the urge to shrink, to fold, to say it's fine when it's not. Breathe through them. And remember, you are not rude for being firm. You are not unkind for being honest. You are not broken for finally saying, that doesn't work for me. You are becoming. And becoming demands fire. So keep burning. Let the ashes of your old self fertilize the ground for what's next. Because what's next is not just a life with fewer obligations. It's a life with more alignment, more truth, more power, more you. More you, that's what the world was missing all along. Not the obedient version. Not the silent version. Not the smiling, nodding, drained version that gave away power like it meant nothing. But the version of you that knows. Knows your time is finite. Knows your energy is priceless. Knows your soul wasn't placed here to be background music in someone else's story. That version doesn't beg. Doesn't chase. Doesn't explain itself endlessly to people committed to misunderstanding. That version builds. Not just walls but standards. Not just boundaries but realms where your peace is law and your values are carved into stone. And the moment you embrace that version, everything shifts. You walk differently. Not with arrogance but with presence. Not with entitlement but with quiet certainty. You stop shrinking in rooms where you used to beg for a seat. Now you own the room. Not because you demanded it, but because you've finally stopped denying yourself. This isn't about ego. It's about essence. This is about living in such alignment that compromise feels like poison and silence tastes like ash. This is about remembering, you never needed to become enough. You only needed to stop pretending you weren't. The Stoics didn't seek comfort. They sought truth. They didn't bend to the crowd. They mastered the self. Because when the self is mastered, no one can master you. That's your path now. No more walking on eggshells. No more rehearsing every word before you speak. No more shrinking your opinions to avoid conflict. Let the conflict come. If the truth shakes the room, let it shake. If your boundaries cause discomfort, let them squirm. You are not here to carry the weight of everyone else's feelings. You are here to carry yourself with honor, with strength, with stillness. And when you do, people will fall into place. The wrong ones will flee. The right ones will rise. Because when you embody your truth, you give others permission to do the same. And that's how you change the world, not by being nice, but by being real. So let this be your turning point. The death of too nice. The rebirth of self-command. The rise of the undeniable you. No more apologies for being clear. No more guilt for needing space. No more shame for being powerful. This is your life. Your time. Your fire. Guard it. Live it. Let it. Because the cost of being too nice was everything you were meant to become. And now, you finally stop paying. And now we close not with a whisper, but with a roar buried deep in stillness. Because this moment, this is your crossing. From who you were trained to be, to who you were born to become. From a life of quiet compliance to a life of unmistakable conviction. From being too nice to being unshakably true. And it doesn't mean you stop loving. It means your love becomes cleaner. No longer bought with silence. No longer bartered through exhaustion. It means your kindness has roots, not cracks. Your generosity comes from overflow, not depletion. It means you give without being drained. Speak without being silenced. Lead without needing to be followed. And now you begin again, with a voice unchained, with a spine that remembers what it means to stand, with a mind clear of noise and a heart no longer held hostage to guilt. You no longer need validation from those who misunderstood your softness as weakness. You no longer bend to protect fragile egos at the cost of your inner peace. You no longer serve anyone who confuses your kindness with compliance. Because now, you see yourself. And when you see yourself clearly, the world learns how to treat you. From this point forward, you speak with calm power. You walk with unhurried purpose. You move like someone who is no longer hiding, shrinking, or explaining. You forgive yourself for all the times you stayed too long, gave too much, said yes when you meant no. And you thank yourself for surviving, for learning, for waking up. Now you live for truth. Now you move with vision. Now you become the quiet storm, the anchored force, the stoic flame that never dies. And yes, they may still call you cold. They may still call you selfish. But the truth is, you've just stopped bleeding for a world that never noticed you were cut. You've stopped lighting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You've stopped negotiating your worth in rooms too small for your power. You've stopped being too nice. And in doing so, you've become something far greater. Clear, strong, free, unshakable. This is who you are now. And this time, you're not going back.